everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. The question was asked the other day, and I believe I'm correct in the answer that I gave. The question was, who are, well, actually, it wasn't a question. Somebody that is familiar with my show, they said, your show is for a specific audience. It's for a unique audience. Now, I know that. And I know, first of all, that I'm not everybody's cup of tea because no one is everybody's cup of tea, especially when you have a podcast like this. There are certain people that show an interest and benefit from the things that is shared. And it was mentioned that the people that are interested in the things that I share are people that are seekers of truth, people that want freedom, people that are fed up. They are tired of living on automation. They are tired of living on autopilot. People that are fed up with traditional, norms and conventional practices that is just a repetitive life. People that are looking for expansion in their lives. And I found it fascinating that was that was what they observed, because it really is true. This show, or the things that I share, is not for everyone. And because some people are just happy with the life that they have, living in the comfort zone and not being creative, not growing, not expanding their vision, not expanding their horizon, and not really being curious about life, not being adventurous. And that is okay. The whole thing about my show is about living audaciously, just living life and having fun and enjoying life now, because this is the life you know. This is what you know. This is what you have. You don't have anything else. There is no guarantee of any kind of afterlife or anything. This is the life that you know. And the only thing that can hinder you or stop you from living this life is the thoughts that you entertain, the belief that you have allowed to be, not allowed, the belief that you've been conditioned and programmed to years ago, and that has shaped your identity. People that come to discover the truth of themselves and desiring to live an authentic life, because there's nothing more rewarding than knowing who you are and being able to stand up and navigate in a sense of self, a sense of confidence, assertiveness. As a matter of fact, it was interesting because Sarah shared this week, and I thought of this. Sarah this week shared. Now, Sarah is a beautiful, young, single lady, woman that is just really living her life. And, of course, she's interested in a relationship. She wants to date. So she went on one of those dating sites, and she connected with this handsome, tall, very successful man. And after a few weeks of chatting, they decided to meet. Well, they learned that they lived in the same city, so they decided to meet. But on Sarah's bio, I guess there's a bio that you fill out when you sign up on one of these dating sites. She indicated some boundaries. She indicated some standards, what her standards are, what her boundaries are, and her non-negotiables. Now, on one of the boundaries, she said she is not interested in any person of a particular political party that voted a certain way. That is a non-negotiable. That was one. And she said that, what was the second one? And she didn't want anyone that was religious. that was too religious. That's what she said. I didn't want anyone that was too religious, and she didn't want anyone that has children at all, whether it's grown or whatever. No kids. And she's of course young enough, because when if you're older, then in most scenarios, older people have kids, whether it's grown in the house, still raising, whatever. But she didn't want anyone with kids. So anyway, that was clear. So Sarah had this conversation with this gentleman before they went on a date, and she reiterated her boundaries, just to make sure, because evidently for her that means that is very significant. So they're at the table, they meet, and they're having a good time, and they just got there. They ordered a drink and so forth, and they started to chat, and they ordered the drink and they ordered the meal, and by the time the meal came, they started eating. And then this guy, we're going to call him Mike. So Michael said, well, in actuality, Sarah, I do have a daughter. I just want to let you know that I do have a daughter. She said, what? He said, well, I do have a child. And he said, I didn't want to put that on the response to your bio, because I know that you probably would not have given me the opportunity to date. Now, remember, the guy, this Michael, you could tell he's a very successful guy, has a good job, a good career, I should say, very successful, and he's got it all together. He's got, nice presentation, nicely packaged, and so forth. So in his mind, he said, I didn't want to tell you, I didn't want to indicate that simply because I didn't think that you would date me, or that you would give me an opportunity to meet. And so she said, but I made it clear, not only on my bio, when we had a conversation, I reiterated it. So by then she was so turned off. Sarah was so turned off. And, he's hoping that, after she sees him, how nicely put together he is, and tall and handsome, and just nicely put together, that would be okay. So by the time he told her that, Sarah got up and she said, well, I'm gonna go to the ladies' room. Give me a second. So she goes to the ladies' room, and she is furious because she felt obviously deceived, and she wasn't taken seriously. So on the way back, she sees the waiter, and she said to the waiter, please have my check ready. My check, this is what I ordered, and you can prepare my tab. So she comes back to the table. The waiter shows up and brings the tab, her tab. So he said, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm going to pay for what I had, and I'm going to leave. He said, well, what do you mean? Why are you going to leave? She said, well, you did not honor my boundaries. I made it clear. She wasn't huffy and puffy. She wasn't mad at him. She was just determined. And she said, you did not honor my boundaries. And if you could not honor my boundaries on a bio, on a dating site, and even when we spoke, that tells me a lot about your character. So anyway, so I'm going to leave. I don't think this is going to work out. And she just left. Now, when I heard that, I applauded Sarah, because if Sarah didn't know who she was, she would have compromised, because most women today, when you see a successful man Sarah is beautiful. She's tall, she's elegant, she's beautiful, and, she's got it. As a matter of fact, you put them both together and they would have made an extraordinary couple. And you would have said, okay, I'm gonna compromise this, and this is gonna be okay. And then you would probably, she would have probably asking him about the arrangements, were you married to the mother of the child, and where is the child, and how old is the child, and visiting rights. She would have probably engaged in a lot of questions. Sarah did not care. She did not care about the details about the child. She wanted to make sure. She just stated that I am not looking for someone with a child because for whatever reason, that was her boundaries. But the thing is, Sarah was so certain about what she wanted, about the things that she would tolerate, put up with, accept, um, and not settle. It would have been easy to settle because the guy is what you would call a good catch, a good match, a good person to link up with, particularly since he liked her as well. He liked her a lot, and he was just really disappointed that she would choose to leave. But the thing that impressed me the most is that, given the fact that she's on Tinder, and you generally don't know what you're getting when you're on these dating sites, but they had enough energy uh, vibrating that she thought, okay, I'm going to go out to dinner with this person. But Sarah's boundaries, or her knowledge of self, knowledge of her own identity, her knowledge of what she likes, what she wants, what she doesn't want, her dreams, goals, desire, all of that. She had clarity with that, particularly in that area of her life. She's in her I think it's her late 20s. So, you would think, well, by then most women are pressured to get married. But that wasn't her thing, because she herself is a professional. So she's not looking for someone to take care of her, or to shower her with gifts and things. No, she's independent. She's autonomous. She can take care of herself. She just wants companion and to see where a relationship could go. And Michael was surprised. But anyway, I was really fascinated by that move. She just left. Sarah just left. And that's why that is why she arrived at the restaurant on her own. She did not want him to pick her up at her place, because that's not what she wanted. And she took herself home. She just left. And when what excuse me, when she shared it, she was a little miffed, simply because she said it was a waste of her time. And rightfully so. It really was a waste of her time, because what she thought was a great possibility. Because, remember, when on these Tinder, I would imagine you have to share a photograph of yourself, a picture. And she liked the packaging of what she saw, and obviously he liked the packaging of what he saw. But the fact that he simply did not say, he didn't. And when she shared it, some people say, well, he didn't lie. He probably didn't lie, but he was deceptive, because he didn't share that he had a kid. And he said, if I had mentioned that, I know that I would not have gotten a date with you. So I simply didn't share it. But the thing is this: Michael underestimated her, simply because he thought, oh, once she sees this, she's going to be so enthralled, so fascinated, so enamored, so impressed with all of this. Once she learns what I do for a living and all of that she would be impressed. And that wasn't the case. And that's the thing about, when I say people that are intellectually curious, and people that really are digging in, people that really want to know who they are, people that really want to grow and expand, and come into that place of confidence and assertiveness, knowing who you are, so that you can not only attract, but you will move and navigate through life with clarity. You will learn to honor your worth. First of all, you will know your worth, know your value, know what you bring to the table, or know that you are the table. You will know all of that, so that when you are met with situations that are challenging, or go against your standards and your boundaries, you can easily identify it and be in a position to say no without excuse, without explanation, without trying to justify your decisions or any of that. So I was impressed when I learned that. So when I talk about my audience, there are people that are questioning life, people that are emotionally exhausted with the routine, the routine. And one of the ways that you would know when you sit still with yourself, try to sit still with yourself and try to think of something that you like, something you want to do, someplace you want to go, people that you want to meet, and try to remove the conditioning, try to remove the programming, try to remove the 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 traditional norms as to how you should even approach what it is that you want, whether it's something that you want, someplace you want to go, or even the thought of daring to want to do something different. Try to sit still with yourself and remove all those external factors and 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 try to hear yourself, your intuition. What would happen? Let's say for instance you want to let's say you want to meet someone. You want to meet someone because you want a companion and you want to navigate life with someone with whom you can share time and experiences, adventures, and just be spontaneous about life. There are a lot of do's and don'ts uh, that's out there that are based on, people would say, common sense, but my husband and I decided over the weekend that when people say common sense, you don't always want to uh, think of things in terms of common sense, because you want to allow your critical thinking skills to kick in to make decisions for yourself. Because common sense has to do with the common denominator. What do people think of, or how do they navigate? What do they do? What's the norm? What do people do? And sometimes, it's like me. I've shared many times. If I had followed my religious doctrine of not to be not unequally yoked, I would not have married my husband, because he was not of the same, he was, someone with character and integrity and qualities, characteristic that I admire, even more so than any kind of doctrine. But he was from a different persuasion. He was from a more traditional type religious circle that didn't fit into my evangelical mindset. And in my camp, I was told, well, it is taught not to be unequally yoked with what's noted as unbelievers, because anyone that did not believe the way we did, they were considered unbelievers. And if I followed that, I would not have been with my husband. And it's interesting because even back then I didn't know anything about, well, I wasn't conscious, I should say, about anything about identity or a journey of self-discovery. None of that was part of my life. None of that at all. So if I was dogmatic and went by that doctrine, by that thought, by that teaching, I would have said no to my husband, because we didn't match according to the doctrine. But it's a matter of fact, it was not even a thought. His characteristics, his character, his integrity, the qualities that he showed, that he displayed, they were so fundamentally shaped in him that there wasn't even a question. And so when I chose to date him, I remember when we were, people had a lot of questions, because I had been single for a long time, or of course, when I was in college, I was married and then I got divorced. But my life as a as a as a religious person, as a Christian, um, which I'm no longer. Just want to mention that uh, I was single all this time. Everybody knew me in that circle as being single, and but I just didn't. It didn't the attributes that my husband displayed trumped everything, trumped every scriptural doctrine or anything of that nature. And fortunately, I made a decision that was outside of common sense, outside of doctrine, outside of religious dogma, outside of the norm, outside of the teaching, outside of what would people say, because I was active in my circle, and people knew me, and I taught Bible school and all of that, and here I am, moving outside of the actual teaching of the doctrine that I subscribed to at the time. And it was not even a question. I did not even, maybe, perhaps, I hope, woulda, coulda, shoulda, none of that. It did not even dawn on me, because his whole person, his whole persona was far above the menial doctrine. So if I had followed common sense or the doctrine, I would have said no to a relationship with my husband, and we wouldn't have gotten married. We wouldn't have dated, period. But that was not even a question. That was not even an option. That was not even I didn't by then I didn't have anything like boundaries and all of that. He said, when I asked him about me, he would say, well, I chose you because you had standards. But those things were just fundamental to me. He calls them standard, but they were just fundamental. The things, things like respect, because I'm not into, respect brings love. I'm not into, oh, I love you so much, but I don't respect you. No, 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 no. Respect first. That is the foundation of a relationship. That is my perspective of a relationship. So that worked out, and we've been married for many years, and it's been good. It's been good. It's been fun. It's been development, growth, evolving, and fortunately for us, it's happening at a almost mutually, at a mutual time, and so forth. But of course, you go at different pace. But after we got married, and he decided to like go to one of the churches, kind of like we went to a new church, similar to what my whole camp evangelical setting. He decided to go with me, and we did that for many years until he just said, "That's it. I am done with this," because he wanted to live and to have fun, and those guidelines, that setting, just did not allow for that. And then we left. We took a sabbatical. We thought, we need to regroup. We need to reset. And after we did that, well, after we or I figured out, because when he mentioned it to me, he didn't pressure me. He didn't pressure me, and he didn't uh, force me to do anything that I didn't want to do. But after I thought, you know what? Yeah, let's just do a reset. And that was, this year makes it 17 years, 17 amazing years. And it's been a year, it's been a time of fun and deliberate, intentional living. And that's what I promote on my program. You have to live a life now. What keeps you from having fun? What is it that is keeping you? What are the, take away the programming, remove the conditioning, remove all the teachings, all the traditional norms and conventional ways. What is it that's keeping you from enjoying life to the fullest? We had someone come to the house. This was a while back. And, when we entertain, we have drinks, we have, wine. We serve wine because we like wine. And sometimes my husband does mixed drinks and so forth. And then this particular person, we say, would you like a glass of wine? And they said, well, um, mm, this person is a religious person. They said, well, mm, yeah, I'll have a glass of wine. And here I am getting ready to serve it. And then they said, well, no, perhaps I shouldn't. You see, now that is not being authentic, because they really wanted to partake of a glass of wine, a glass of wine, just a glass of wine, a glass of wine. And then they said, no, we're okay with that, because when we have company, we want you to show up and enjoy yourself. We want you to come and enjoy yourself. And if that means a glass of wine or a margarita, whatever, then we'll do that. But and if you don't want anything, then that's fine. We have some sparkling grape juice that we generally keep for people that uh, do not consume alcohol, and we're fine. But the point is this: the person really wanted to have a glass of wine, and for some reason they said yes. Why? Because they wanted to engage socially, but at the same time, the doctrine kicks in, and in their mind they should not drink. And so they were wrestling with that for a second. Then they said, yeah, I'll have a glass of wine. And here I am getting ready to pour it. And then they said, well, no, I think I better not. I better not. I shouldn't. I better not. And I said, okay, fine. I said, how about sparkling grape juice? And they said, yes, I'll have that. No, well, I think they said, well, does it have alcohol? And I'm like, no, it doesn't have any alcohol. And they were okay with that. But you see, it's like depriving yourself of doing the things you want because of a certain programming, because of a certain conditioning, because of a certain teaching that you have been indoctrinated in, that shape your life, shape your identity, and takes away from the things that you really want to do. So I'm saying to you today, sit with yourself, and try to think of, what is it that you really want to do? What is it that's going to make you happy, content, and just to enjoy the life that you have now? What is it? What is it that you want to do? Where is it that you want to go? Who is it that you want to meet? What criteria do you have, and why? Because you have to know why. If you're saying, okay, I'm not going to date this kind of person because of, then it's important that you identify why. Why will you not date this kind of person? You meet this guy, um, this woman, this person, and you know that you like this person, but they lack something. And I'm not talking about a moral fiber, that is quickly identifiable. Somebody that may have that's maybe uncouth, or you know no no moral thread, that matches yours, that's in alignment with yours. Those are things that are easily identifiable. Somebody that perhaps uses language that you may not subscribe to. And you may say, well, no, this is not the type of person I want. But if it's a person that, let's say, for instance, you meet someone, you are of a certain type of background, and you meet someone totally different, someone that is not even perhaps culturally you're so different. But I know, for people that have traveled, I know we have traveled extensively, and you meet people, and you know that we all want the same thing in life. We want to be happy. We want to be able to provide for our families, and we want to be safe. But most people want to be happy in their lives. And whatever it is that brings you joy. Some people is traveling. Some people is having a wide social circle. Some people is spending time with the grandkids. Some people is raising their children. Some people have fun enjoying their spouse, their partner. Some people spending time with their children. they're grown adult children. Some people are happy with their careers. And if that brings you fun, if that brings you pleasure, then you are on the right path. But if there is something that is just not setting right, and when I talk to people, it's usually something having to do with their careers. You have worked. I know for me, I worked in corporate America for many years. And after a while, I said, I'm done. And before I decided to leave corporate America, what I did, I went and I got a certification as a life coach. And because I thought, I'm going to do that. And the things that I know, I wanted to be trained to be a life coach and to help others like I am here. And it was great. I did that before I left. And then with time, and then, when I decided to leave, I had something to look forward to, a life coach. And then with time, a couple of years later, more than a couple of years later, I realized that creating a show would be something fun. Or I would have a more expansive platform to talk to people other than one-on-one, because that's what coaching is pretty much one-on-one. I don't do group coaching. Well, I haven't done it, but so that's the thing. I made that decision because came a point where I was done with corporate America. Not because of anything, not because of anything. I was just tired. I was just tired of the same thing over and over. And I had the years that I spent in corporate America, they were good years because I grew a lot. And I became, I got, promotions. And not only that, but I grew in understanding better who I am. I had to make decisions, think on my feet. I dealt with people and all of, I grew in confidence and assertiveness because of the positions that I held and the decisions that I had to make day in and day out. I had to think on my toes. I had to on my toes. I had to think on my feet and almost on my toes. That means like, and all of those. I grew and I loved it. I really honor and embrace those years that I invested in corporate America. And my life has been a great return. I see it. My husband says to me, he says, yeah, you have a sense of confidence and know-how and how to and problem solving ability and the ability to stay calm, cool, calm, collected under pressure and so forth. And so those are the things that I have learned in corporate America. But when I was done with that, because comes a point in your life that you're just done. You are just and don't let things hold you back. Like you may think, well, if I leave, I won't be able to do life as I do now. As a matter of fact, I remember my sister saying to me, you just need to leave. You just need to do it. Because came a point, my sister is a nurse and worked in the medical field for many years. And came a point where she said, that's it. And she left, she retired. And she's had an amazing life up till this day. And when I would talk to her back then, it was like, oh, it's like, she would say, just leave. She said, just leave. She says, you will never be ready to leave corporate America. It's a decision you have to make. And she said, and don't worry about the money. I remember her telling me that. She says, don't worry about the money. You'll be able to do the things that you do now. And surprisingly enough, it's really interesting because actually, when I left corporate America, we started doing much more than I did because I had the freedom to travel, and that's what we wanted to do more of. Travel. We traveled to so many countries and take taking so many cruises and all of that. Why? Because I now have the time to do that. I govern my own time. I manage my own time. It's like my husband would say, uh, sometimes he kids me and he said, well, are you off today? Are you off tomorrow? And he would say, what are your days off this week? And, because again, I manage my own time and that works well for me. Other than, of course, when I have appointments or business appointments and things like that. But then again, I'm the one that set the tone. I'm the one that set the appointments that I need for my business and so forth. So you can do it. If that's one of the things that is holding you back and hindering you from moving forward, take a step back. And I talk a lot about creating the life that you want. Once you make a decision, I have some things that are happening in my life right now that are just beyond me. As a matter of fact, I said to my husband, wow, this is like uh, bigger than me, than I can think of. And he said, no, he said, you shouldn't feel any kind of way because your experience, how you have the confidence, you have the strength, you know what you want, you know who you are, you know where you're going, and all of that. He said, and I thought, wow, okay, if that's the way he sees me, then I should be okay. But there are some things that are happening in my life now that are bigger than me, and the way it's coming together, it's beyond what I even thought. But because I have trained myself, my mind, critical thinking, and the emotional part of me to follow my intuition, I kind of navigate on that uh, vibration, on that thread, that energy, and I I'm always seeking clarity, because when you have clarity about where you're headed, then there's no hesitation, there's no vacillation, there's no fear in moving forward. And you come to a place where if you go after something and you realize it doesn't work for you, then that's okay. At least you made the effort and you learn something. You learn that this is not what you want. This is not where you're headed. But if it's something that's resting on your mind and your gut and a feeling, and and it's something that seems like fun that you will enjoy and that's going to elevate your life and elevate your thinking and expand your horizon, then you need to go for it. Don't hesitate. But as I said before, sit with yourself and think without the conditioning. That can be a challenge and it can be hard to do, because every thought that comes to mind are thoughts that have shaped our belief system. And if you're thinking within that box, which is limited, it's limiting belief system. If you are thinking within that box, then it's not your original thought. There are thoughts that were imported, thoughts that shape the way you think. But try to think outside of that box. If you're thinking, okay, you grew up in, Somerville or whatever, all your life you have lived in Somerville. And, you've been there, you went to school there, you went to college there, and all of that. But now you want something new. But then the people that are around you are people that are familiar. You go down the street and you know the neighbor. You go to the left, you know the neighbor. You know everybody. You know everything. You know the way things happen. The street lights, when they go off, when they come on, you know everything. And you want something new. You're at the point where you want something exciting. You're at the point where you want something adventurous. You're at the point where you're curious about life. What is out there? How about other cultures, other ethnicity? other races, other backgrounds. What about how is life lived over there? How can I enhance my own life by learning about someone else's? How do you define fun? Excuse me. How do you define happiness? How do you define fulfillment for yourself? How do you define it? How do you define all of that? How do you measure your own happiness? What brings you joy? Does it depend on uh, the someone else, like the grandkids or your kids? One lady said to me, no, I want to stay here where my kids are, where my grandkids are. I want to stay in the same community because I want to see them grow and I want to do this. And her whole life is shaped and surrounded by her family. And one of her kids decided to leave town and she was just heartbroken because, of course, the daughter was leaving with her family and took away the three grandkids and so forth. And she's hoping that things wouldn't go well for them so that they would come back home. Imagine that. So her happiness, her joy is based upon her children and the grandchildren. That's not sustainable because, if they change, and sometimes, over Mother's Day was just happened over the weekend. And there were so many mothers complaining that their kids, all they did was send them a text, Happy Mother's Day, or just a phone call, or some kids did not even remember them. And it brought such sadness to them. So you can't really depend on someone else. You have to determine what makes you happy, what gives you pleasure, what brings you joy, what brings you happiness and contentment. And then you are guided by that. You are guided by that. That's how you discover the things you like, the things you don't like. What do you consider fun? And a lot of us, a lot of people, they don't burst out. Why? Because you're too concerned. What would people think? What is someone, a lot of these people that you are thinking of, and I mean, I don't know who they are, but a lot of these people that you're thinking of, what would they think? What would they think of you? How would they judge you? Would they shame you? Will they guilt trip you? And so you stay put. You may have a family member that depends on you, and you have to sort that out. You have to sort that out based on the traditional codes that you were taught, raised with. I had a person that called me not too long ago, and they by osmosis became the caretaker of a family member, and it's hindered their own lives. And now it's come to where she's expected to be there. The expectation is that she will be there to take care of all the things that are needed. And I said, well, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision because this person, the family member, has the means to hire other accommodations. Now you need to decide if that is going to work for you. And if it's not going to work for you, then again, those are decisions that you need to make. But barring that situation, you are single and you're by yourself and you just want to really branch out. What is it that's holding you back? How can you sit with yourself? Sit with yourself and get rid of all the conditioning. Comes a point where you have to dismantle, because that's what we do here. We deconstruct, we dismantle beliefs that no longer serves us, you have to crush them. You have to get rid of them because they will hold you back. Get rid of all the do's. You can do this and you can't do that, and you can do this and you can't do that. You can do whatever you desire to do as long as your freedom does not infringe on the freedom of someone else, the freedom, the safety, and the life of another person. And no, give yourself credit. You have wisdom. You can make decisions. You have the emotional intelligence to do the things that you want to do and to make the decisions that you want to make. Follow your gut, follow your intuition, get rid of and any thought that comes to your mind, measure it against a traditional behavior. And if it's something that was imposed upon you or you learn because of tradition, or this is the way we do it in our family, comes the holiday, we gather and we do this. That is a tradition. Now, if that brings you joy, then you do that. But if you're saying, you know what, I want to be done with that. I want something else. I want something new. Then, barring the tradition, you say, no, I'm going for something new. I'm going to my partner's gathering, family gathering, or whatever. Or no, I'm going to get on the plane and we're going to go to another city to enjoy ourselves and to have a good time and to do whatever we want to do. What you have to understand, my friend, you have the life that you have, the life that you know now, here and now, is the life that you are living. And it's up to you to decide how you want to live that life, your life, now. It's up to you. You make that decision. So if you are an intellectual seeker or someone that is fed up, tired of the same old, and are looking for something new, this is the place that you can come and unpack that. If you need to drop me a note and share with me the things that you are dealing with, info@the CynthiaLinoxShow.com. I'm going to leave you with that so that you can think about it. Set yourself aside and try to think without the conditioning, think without the programming, think without the doctrines, think for yourself, think, engage in critical thinking, and create the life that you want. Go one step at a time, making the changes. We meet here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you can't meet me here, then you see the icons down here? Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can pick up the feed 24/7. I'm leaving this show and I am going to meet with my friend and we're going to have a good time. I'm looking forward to that. They summoned me. They said, we haven't seen each other for a long time and let's go have some sushi. So I'm going to do that. I trust that you have a fantastic weekend. Whatever you choose to do, have a great weekend. And I will see you next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend and Again, sit with yourself and discover deeper areas within your own life, barring all tradition, conventional norms, and external influences. Discover the depth within your own self. See you next week.